Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for coming back and continuing to cover the Hurricane Laura response and recovery, but also a current COVID public health emergency. As you know, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning last Thursday, a week ago, that Hurricane Laura made landfall as a very strong Category 4 hurricane, only 7 miles per hour wind speed less than a Category 5. And it's useful to remember that it maintained hurricane strength almost all the way through its track in Louisiana up into the Lincoln and Ouachita Parish area. And that was the first time that our state has experienced that. And as a result, Hurricane Laura left a long trail of devastation and just catastrophic damage. And obviously it's worse in southwest Louisiana, but it is very, very considerable throughout its track. Yesterday I was able to return to Lake Charles for the third time since last Thursday. My first visit post-storm was actually last Thursday afternoon. Yesterday I was able to meet with local officials, talk to members of the Louisiana National Guard, members of the public who were coming through the points of distribution to pick up commodities, and we also met with a number of volunteers who begun the very difficult process of picking up the pieces. And I will tell you, I was very encouraged just by the sheer number of people, the resources that have been brought to bear, the really good work that is being done, the progress that's been made over a 7-day period, but we clearly have a very, very long way to go. And this is very much going to be a marathon, not a sprint. And we're going to keep working every single day to make the lives of Louisianans better who've been impacted by this storm. Today I will travel after this press conference to meet with officials of Vernon, Beauregard, Allen, and Jefferson Davis parishes. We will do that at 2 meetings, and we will be spending some time with them to make sure we're addressing their concerns and meeting their needs as well. I do want to reiterate that there are continued weather threats, particularly in the short term related to heat, and we need for people who are working in this extreme heat. And by the way, the heat indexes have been well over 100 degrees for several consecutive days. We need people who are working to pace themselves, take frequent breaks, make sure you're hydrating properly, and if you feel ill, stop working. And I say that because yesterday we added 2 new storm-related deaths, both related to heat. One was an elderly lady, another was a relatively young man. And I think these deaths actually happened on August the 31st, but they were just now linked to the storm. So we can confirm now 17 deaths related to the storm. I also want to remind everybody to continue to exercise safety and precautions when it comes to the operation of generators. We know that we still have well over 200,000 customers, and that's more than 200,000 people, but accounts without electricity service. Many of these individuals and homeowners are taking advantage of generators. Carbon monoxide poisoning remains a serious concern, so please make sure that that generator is at least 20 feet away from the house and that it's in a well-ventilated area, not in your garage or in a crawl space or carport, not next to the house under a window or a vent or something like that. And then as you need to refuel the generator, let it cool down first. So while we're thankful not to have a casualty associated with this latest incident, we have been made aware through the fire marshal's office of a fire that burned a house down because the homeowner refueled the generator while it was still hot, and obviously the generator was too close to the house. So those 2 things are worth repeating. Get that generator away from the house at least 20 feet and don't refill it with fuel while it's still hot. FEMA, there will be a drive-through FEMA documentation drop-off center that will open tomorrow in Lake Charles, and Hurricane Laura survivors will be able to have their documents scanned into their case file and returned to them And so that document scanning will be offered. It's going to operate under strict COVID-19 protocols to ensure the safety of all participants. So masks or face coverings are going to be required for entry and for service. Individuals being serviced will remain in their automobiles. Specialists from FEMA wearing face masks or other covering will receive the documents through the window, scan them, and return them to the individuals. This is going to be done at the Calcasieu Parish School Board, which is at 3310 Broad Street in Lake Charles. And there are no appointments necessary. It'll operate from 7 a.m. To 7 p.m. We encourage everyone who suffered storm damage and looking for assistance from FEMA to make sure that they register. About 92,000 individuals have registered thus far. I think they've paid out about $25 million in assistance to those individuals. But we're encouraging people to go to www.disasterassistance.gov, or you can call 800-621-3362. 800-621-3362. Operation Blue Roof is operational, and we are working now to have people register for this assistance as well. I can tell you that there are a number of individuals, more than 2,700, I think, homeowners have already registered. We believe the blue roofs will actually go up starting on this Saturday. This is the first step for many that will make their homes safe, habitable, and secure after the storm, which will allow more individuals to stay in their homes, and they won't need to shelter or have temporary lodging outside of their homes. Operation Blue Roof can be accessed by calling 888-766-3258. That's 888-766-3258. And I think that's 888 Roof Blue without the final E, ROOF-BLU. You can also go to a Corps of Engineers website and register. It's usace.army.mil/Blue Roof. Yesterday, the National Guard working hard all across the state of Louisiana. I had the privilege of visiting with a number of soldiers and to be able to personally thank them for their work. I will tell you we have just under 6,100 guardsmen activated presently to support the Hurricane Laura response. They have distributed to date more than 3.6 million liters of water, more than 2.4 million MREs, right at 350,000 bags of ice, and 114,000 tarps. The National Guard today is conducting 30 points of distribution and 10 hubs, so that's a total of 40 sites for commodity distribution, and that's across 17 parishes. They've also assessed 2,158 miles of roadway and cleared debris off of 1,672 miles of roadway. We have about 212,000 people without power today. I shouldn't say people. Those are accounts without power. That's a lot of customers, and it's down from 615,000 at its peak, and we're getting down to that point now where the remaining customers are going to be harder. It's going to take longer to get their power restored. You're going to continue to see faster progress in North Louisiana than you will in Southwest Louisiana, just because of the sheer amount of devastation and damage to the distribution lines and the transmission lines. And it's thousands of miles of wire. It's thousands of regular utility poles, and it's in the hundreds of transmission towers that have to be replaced. The CPRA is working today in Cameron Parish in order to try to dewater portions of that parish from the storm surge that came in that hasn't gone back out. And specifically, they're working on an emergency operation to cut a levee along the Mermentau River in the vicinity of the Rockefeller Wildlife area, I should say the refuge there. And that operation will remove flood water from roadways and enable equipment, fuel, and supplies into these hard-hit areas. The work began yesterday and should be completed by Saturday. As of this morning, we have 11,954 individuals being sheltered in the state, and we have a number of individuals who are being sheltered in Texas as well. And almost all of whom are being sheltered both in Louisiana and Texas in non-congregate shelters and hotels. Texas will be working to move people out of the southern portion of the state just as a precaution, because we know we're still in hurricane season. So for those individuals who are sheltering in the Beaumont and Houston areas, they're going to be given an opportunity to move to other non-congregate shelter hotels in points further north in Texas for their own safety. And that's going to happen, I think, starting tomorrow. And they're going to continue to offer Louisiana citizens shelter in Texas. But those individuals can call 888-991-5229 or 211 to confirm the parish and to register for accommodations. As difficult as it is, we're encouraging people, if you can stay in Texas, to do that, because quite frankly, we're having difficulty getting the hotel rooms that we need here in Louisiana for the population that we're trying to shelter. And there's a good chance that if these individuals come back to Louisiana, that at least for some period of time, they would be in a congregate shelter, which in a COVID environment is obviously not desirable. And we want to thank the generosity, the goodness of the people of Texas for taking care of our citizens over there. And I have personally called to thank Governor Abbott for his work in that regard. So if you do decide to come to Louisiana, understand that you may be placed into a congregate shelter in Alexandria, and we're going to work as hard as we can to get you out of there, but the sheer number of folks would make that very, very difficult. So for anyone who needs up-to-date sheltering information, you can text LA Shelter to 898-211. I do want to talk a little bit about this weekend. We have a lot going on in Louisiana. We have tens of thousands of people from Southwest Louisiana who've been relocated to other parts of our state, some of whom are in hotels, some are staying with family and friends. Some are in hotels but not part of our sheltering operation. Additionally, we have tens of thousands of people who are in Louisiana who are not from our state because they're here to fix the damage to the electricity infrastructure. They're here to do construction work, to remove debris, and so forth. And so we have an awful lot of movement, of people coming into contact with one another, and I'm talking specifically about COVID-19. So we know that the last surge in cases in Louisiana started with Memorial Day, the holiday weekend that traditionally starts summer. Now we're about to have Labor Day, the holiday weekend that ends summer. And so what we don't want is a repeat of what we saw in Memorial Day. And if it's so much more important now that people make sure that they do things safely. And that means if you're going to celebrate, make sure that you do so in a way that is safe, that incorporates all the mitigation measures. First of all, any gathering should be small. If you have people who are not from the same household, you need to keep physically distant. You need to wear your mask, wash your hands, and anybody who is symptomatic, sick for whatever reason, they need to stay home and not participate in that. And look, we know that a considerable amount of spread is generated from backyard informal social gatherings, you know, the barbecues, the birthday parties, other kinds of activities. So it is incredibly important that we not let our guard down on this weekend, especially since we have schools that are back in session, and our universities, campuses around the state are also back. So we've got some work to do this weekend. I do want to give you the COVID numbers that came to me a short while ago for today. Today, it appears we're going to report 884 new cases on 12,320 tests and 17 new COVID-related deaths. The death total now is 4,858. The number of hospitalizations we're reporting, and I'm not sure whether this has been updated or not, it may be yesterday's numbers, 851 COVID admissions across the state, 128 of whom are on ventilators. We will have, I think those are yesterday's numbers on the hospitalizations. Today's numbers should be available right around noon or shortly thereafter. So with that, I'm going to take questions for about 10 minutes, and you're welcome to direct a question to any of the other individuals that you see here or who are on our team, but I will have to end the press conference at about 5 minutes to 11. Sam?
Governor, can you talk about why you're having trouble finding hotel rooms for people? If you run out of hotels where you have contracts, what are you doing now? Are you putting people up in congregate shelters, or are you looking out of state, or what does that look like?
Well, right now, we are able to get people into hotels. They are only spending a very short time in congregate shelters. But we know that it's difficult to get enough hotels to enter into the contracts with us to free up enough rooms to shelter a large number of additional individuals. And so we've been remarkably successful thus far. But if, for example, we had 4,000 people that came back from Texas, but they needed to be sheltered in Louisiana, we would be very, very hard-pressed to meet that demand. And that's why we're encouraging people that if they can access non-congregate sheltering in Texas, that they stay in Texas and take advantage of the opportunity that the Texas governor and all the people there are so generously affording to them. So we obviously don't commandeer hotels, and so we have to get hotels to enter into contracts with us. And we've been successful thus far, but we don't think that we would be able to quickly absorb another 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people into our hotels based on where we are right now.
Can you find out how many people are in Texas?
Yeah. We're working on that, and quite frankly, it's proven very, very difficult because Texas registers their evacuees in their shelters, as I understand it, by heads of household, not by the entire party that's traveling. We are working with the Red Cross, who is present at those hotel shelters, to see if we can come up with better information. And quite frankly, I can't tell you. We know that it's in the thousands, and I don't know. I quite frankly don't know if it's 3,000 or 5,000 or 7,000. But we're working on that, and we'll get that information just as soon as we can. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, in terms of the university test results for COVID, I know y'all have been working with regions on getting some sort of reporting system in place. What's the status of that?
Yeah.
I know it will be broken down by campus, but who's going to run the website, and is that going to include athletics, positive tests?
Yeah. I think that they've had meetings very recently that I wasn't part of, and so I'm going to see if Dr. B will come and give you an update on that.
Yeah, thank you. So we did actually, as recently as yesterday, have a meeting with the Board of Regents to discuss this and shared with them templates for the reporting. So the process is going to be that the universities are on a weekly basis going to report to us cases after giving us some background information on their student body population, their faculty size, how many people are on campus versus off campus. So they'll have sort of a baseline, a denominator. And then they're going to give us updates on cases in those different populations, students versus faculty. Normally, we would just put that information out there as these are university-associated cases, similar to what we do for other settings. The universities, though, have specifically asked us in this case to post on our website their campuses and give that information by campus. So we've agreed to make that accommodation. So we will report on our LDH website each individual university and then their number of cases associated. We will not make a distinction between whether the student is an athlete or not. These will be student numbers in aggregate. Yeah, so all of that is reportable to us. So yes, it'll be indicative of what that student body is. We just won't break out specific subsectors of those student bodies.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
Hey, Governor. So the Department of Corrections early release panel stopped the June 30th records in June. Do you think that's the Department of Corrections start reviewing those records early release here?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand your question. I know it deals with the Department of Corrections, but I just didn't pick up much. Okay.
So the Department of Corrections early release panel stopped reviewing prisoners' records in June. Do you think that the Department of Corrections should start reviewing prisoners' records again for early release?
I haven't had that conversation with the Secretary of Corrections since they stopped. I don't know. It is worth having another conversation. As you know, we created that special review panel to look at certain individuals who met certain criteria as to whether they could and should be released early. And I will get back with the Secretary. I can tell you, as of now, there are not plans to do that, but there may be a reason to, and I'll get with the Secretary and have that discussion with him. Well, I'll be open to it if there's a valid reason to do it. If it's something that we think that's an appropriate and reasonable action to take in light of the COVID situation. Yes, sir. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Okay. Okay, so I got a letter from the CDC from Dr. Redfield last night, and so we haven't had an opportunity to have a conversation with the CDC to see exactly what this is going to look like. The letter was a request for me and really for every governor to make sure that whatever needs to happen to allow for the distribution of a vaccine by November 1st in terms of permitting distribution centers in state with McKesson, right? With McKesson, that can happen. And so what they've asked us to do is inventory all of the laws, the regulations that pertain to that, see which ones would need to be modified or waived in order to accommodate a distribution system in our state, either by McKesson or its licensed subsidiaries or agents. And so we're starting today to inventory what all those requirements are, which ones we think we have the ability to waive, and whether there might be some others, just so that if in fact there's a vaccine to distribute, which there will be one day, don't know exactly when that's going to happen. The letter asked us to be ready to do that by November the 1st. Now, I don't interpret that to mean that there will be a vaccine available by then, but they want to make sure that we're able to stand up a distribution center in our state, a system, I should say, in our state by November the 1st to be able to accommodate vaccine distribution at some point, either no earlier than that date, but at some point after. And so, but we just got the letter last night, and so we're engaging in conversation with the CDC to see exactly what they intended by it and what we can do to be responsive. And when we have more information, we'll certainly let you know. Okay, I want to thank you all very much for continuing to cover this. We will have another press availability tomorrow, Christina? Beg your pardon? Okay, we're not going to announce today the time because I know my calendar is in flux for tomorrow because I'll be traveling again tomorrow as well. But thank you all for covering this. And finally, just one more appeal to the people of Louisiana. This is Labor Day weekend. If we hadn't had Hurricane Laura, I would still be appealing to everyone to make sure that you exercise caution and incorporate mitigation measures into your activities this weekend. And by the way, we really want those activities to be as minimal as possible. But large social gatherings really should not happen. Make sure that you have your mask on when you're interacting with anybody outside your immediate household, that you stay at least 6 feet away from them. Wash your hands frequently, and don't do any of these things if you're sick. Remember that there are certain parts of our population that are more vulnerable than others. So if you're 65 or older, you're considered to be vulnerable. If you have a comorbid health condition like hypertension, diabetes, kidney disease, heart disease, some respiratory ailment, you are more vulnerable than others, and we need to be especially mindful of that. And I especially want to ask people to be very careful. This may be the first weekend that young people come back from college campuses to spend time with their families. And that's a wonderful thing. I've got a young freshman at LSU. But we know that the 18 to 29-year-old group is positive in a higher percentage than other age groups. They're driving cases in that age group and transmission outside of that age group. So we have to be extremely careful with that. And I will just flat out tell you, when my son comes home, he's got a mask in my living room, and we sit a distance from him with our masks on. And I'm encouraging everyone to do that. And by the way, he doesn't spend the night either. He comes in for a quick visit. But anyway, this is a very, very serious time, because with Hurricane Laura, we have so much more activity, so many more people coming into contact with one another, and thousands of people coming into Louisiana, and they're going to be going back and coming back over and over and over again. Exactly what you wouldn't want to happen in a COVID environment, but we absolutely have to do it to respond to and recover from Hurricane Laura. So if we want to be successful in with our school openings, our business openings, and be able to progress into the next stage of reopening, we really need to be mindful about this Labor Day weekend. This was the number one thing that Dr. Burks emphasized in our coronavirus task force call on Monday. It is the number one thing I'm asking everybody in the state of Louisiana to be cognizant of right now. We all have to do our part, because remember, there's always a 2-week, 3-week lag between when the cases really get transmitted and when we pick that up through testing and hospitalizations and so forth. And we really, really don't want to have that next surge that requires us to hit the brakes on what we're doing in Louisiana. So I thank you. And by the way, if you're here in Louisiana providing relief work, God bless you. Thank you so much. Wear a mask, though. We're making them available to everybody. Wear a mask. I know that it's hot, but it can be done. And there are many people out there who are doing these things. But quite frankly, I've been traveling enough to know that too many are not. And that's not a safe situation. So let's lift one another up in prayer. Let's continue to be good neighbors. And we're going to continue to make progress. Remember, this is a marathon. It is not a sprint, but we are sprinting to get the immediate resources that people need to them just as quickly as we possibly can. So thank you all, and I will see you tomorrow.